Ba-da-bum, ba-da-bum. Welcome to Mio on MMA podcast, recapping UFC Fight Night Vegas 64, or UFC Fight Night Rodriguez versus Lemos, or UFC Fight Night Apex whatever. At this point, of course, the ridiculous number of fight cards at the Apex in the last 2 years. So going into this card, I had a weird feeling about it. Normally, I think a card is going to be good, or I think a card is going to be bad. And essentially, it's based on how many fights on this card do I have a hard time seeing as bad? How many do I have a hard time seeing as good? And that's sort of the equation. And how much impact does the card have? This card definitively had very little impact. Yes, the main event was a big deal. But that was about it. Your third fight down on this card is Derek Minner versus Shaolin Nurenbeke, which is an important fight for all the wrong reasons now, but was not important. And even the Neil Magny versus Daniel Rodriguez fight, not super. Had Rodriguez beaten Magny and gotten past the quote-unquote gatekeeper, he's a 35, almost 36-year-old fighter who we've seen come up short a number of times, both in actual losses and in not so actual losses. The Leach fight and the Nicholas Dalby fight are both kind of weird. And then, like I said, you have Minner versus Nurenbeke. You have Ulanbekov versus Nate Maness in a fight where Maness is going way too low. Mark Madsen versus Grant Dawson, a fight that doesn't really prove a ton, doesn't really mean a lot. Miranda Maverick and Shanna Young, which is kind of just an execution. Mario Bautista versus Benito Lopez, which I was looking forward to, is a really, really good action fight, but has no real value. And then Fry and Viana, bad fight. Munoz versus Shalinian. Didn't end up meaning anything. Jake Hadley versus Candelario doesn't really mean anything. Pascual versus Vidal doesn't really mean anything. So there was a definitive lack of impact for this card. But we got a bunch of finishes. I should have pulled up the fight card already. That is my fault for neglecting to do that. But I think we got 9 finishes, if I'm not wrong. If I'm not incorrect on this card. In 11 fights, which is cool. 1 decision, 2 decisions. Yeah, we got 9 finishes. Nice variety. We got a Darce choke submission, which is cool. We got a couple KOs. We got we got a really cool standing guillotine choke. We got a rear naked choke. We got an arm bar. We got a triangle choke. So yeah, there was, and we had a switch knee to the body knockout, which is really bizarre. So we had a nice variety of stoppages. And none of these fights were super boring, although some of them were not very good. So I guess in the end, this card delivered more than it should have and wasn't really a waste of my Saturday. So that's good. Just watched my Hamilton Tiger Cats lose the East semifinal in the CFL. It's not just that they lost, it's that they played. Oh, they played badly. I saw this coming. Our team was a weird playoff team, but hey, let's get into the fights here. Let's get this going. Marina Rodriguez, Amanda Lemos, tepid, boring first round that at the end of the day I gave to Rodriguez because I think she landed a little bit more. Both of them were hitting air a lot. Lemos went for a takedown, which Rodriguez reversed it, finished on top, doing very, very little, but still getting the job done. But at the same time, not doing what you need to do with Lemos. Because the big question with Lemos is she's very powerful, but how long does that power last? How high of volume can she go with that power? And how long does it take for her to get tired? And Rodriguez was just letting her set the pace in the first round. I didn't like it. Second round, I didn't like it again. There was more of the same. Not really much going on. Lemos gets her down, goes for a rear naked choke, can't get it, ends up losing back control while going for this arm triangle thing, which is super loose. Finished the round on top, easy round, 1 round apiece heading into the third. And then we get a controversial stoppage. Or at least I view it as controversial. I know a lot of people seem to be really happy about this. Let me describe it, and then I'll go into what I don't like about it. Lemos clips Rodriguez pretty hard on the feet, throws a big jumping knee that doesn't connect, throws a 3, 4, 5 punches, something like that, into the arms of Rodriguez. Again, nothing really landing. Rodriguez is clearly hurt. I want to make that clear. Rodriguez is clearly hurt and not really thinking about things. But the referee steps in for a standing TKO. I don't like the stoppage because it doesn't fit into the other stoppages we tend to get. I want to look up if that was the same referee that handled Minner versus Nuremberg. I don't think it was. Referee Mark Smith was that one. This one was Jason Herzog. And I like Jason Herzog as a referee. He's a really good referee. But how often do we see a standing TKO that does not involve the follow-up shots actually landing? And that's kind of my problem is do not get me wrong. Rodriguez was not far from me being not even being okay with the stoppage, but asking for the stoppage. 1-2 punches, that's probably all it is. But the problem here is, and a couple of lady fight fans I have brought up the same thing. Would this fight have been stopped if it was guys? We should have the same standards for the male fights and the female fights in terms of the rules. The quality, of course, will vary because women's MMA is a little bit behind in development and full understanding of how things really are going to work, because there are physical differences. Women are tremendous. We have seen women get caught in arm bars, for example, and that arm going at a horrendous angle and then being fine. And it's not like a specific girl. It's like girls, plural, or ladies, plural, being able to do that. So there's that level of flexibility that comes into play. There's different constructions to the shoulder joint, so on, sort of like the deal with underhand versus overhand throwing of a ball. If you watch softball, women are terrifying underhand pitchers. Not so much overhand. Or if you, like me, watch your sister play college flag football in a ladies' league, and watching how there really is not really much of a stretch of the field going on, there is differences on probably how that works. And that's kind of the thing. And also, the other thing, and this was the thing I was going to ask about Marina Rodriguez. So in the lead up to this fight, they had Rodriguez give off a package about talking about how I've been with my coach since the beginning. We have that great relationship. I wouldn't even ponder going anywhere else. And you look at Marina Rodriguez's gym, and it's a gym called Thai Brasilia Florpia, or Florpa. And the next best fighter in that gym is Diana Torquato, who's an 11-5 female who has at least fought some decent people. But the best guy out of the gym is probably Enduran Dos Santos, who's not fought since 2020 and is 3-2. So this is kind of my question: is that my additional point is that with women's MMA, there seems to be this obsession with being at the gym you started at until the end of your career. We see this with Marina Rodriguez. We see this with Aspen Ladd. We saw this for a long time with Karolina Kowalkiewicz, Sarah McMahon, Ronda Rousey, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. These people who are at gyms that do not produce a lot of UFC caliber fighters, but will stay there and succeed despite the fact that their technical game doesn't necessarily improve. Like Rodriguez is a perfect example of this. What is Marina Rodriguez technically good at? I can't really think of much. She throws in volume nicely. She'll throw combinations, but it's all pretty sloppy. It's all made up for by the fact that she is a 5'6" strawweight, very tall, very long for the division, has natural power, and scares people. I'm not saying her coach has taught her nothing, but her coach has not taught her a ton, and her success is off of innate God-given abilities. And I think that permeates women's MMA, because with the men, I mean, if we look at the men on this card for a moment, and I were to list their gyms outside of foreign gyms, you'll probably recognize all the names. You'll probably be like vaguely familiar with the gyms in question. Carlos Candelario, Underdog Mixed Martial Arts. Okay, that's one that's kind of like a starter gym. Then we have Johnny Muniz, who's at another one. Sequence Jiu-Jitsu Norco. Okay, fine. But then you have Benito Lopez, Team Alpha Male. Mario Bautista, the MMA Lab, big gym in Arizona. Marco Madsen, Fight Ready MMA in Arizona. Massive gym, up and coming. Grant Dawson, Glory MMA and Fitness is the listed one here. I think he moved to Florida, did he not? Is he not with Killcliff now? I think he's with Killcliff now. But, again, big gyms. Nate Maness, Nice Guy Submission Fighting. Okay, that's our first one in a bit that we don't really know. Or at least I don't really know. And then we're at Derek Minner, who's another Glory MMA and Fitness guy. Neil Magny, Elevation Fight Team. D-Rod, Syndicate MMA. So, with the exception of the foreign fighters, and then Candelario, Muniz, and Manus, all big gyms, all relatively large gyms. And then on the ladies' side of things, I want to say Miranda Maverick and Shanna Young are the only two at big gyms. Oh, no, Ramona Pasquale's at Syndicate. So you got Syndicate MMA's Ramona Pasquale. You've got Shanna Young, also at Syndicate. You got Miranda Maverick with Elevation Fight Team, or the offshoot of it with Elliot Marshall. But then you got Lemos, who's at a small gym. Rodriguez, who's at a small gym. Viana, who's at a small gym. Jinyu Fry, who does train at Fortis MMA, but also trains at Frey MMA with her husband, which is another case of getting married to your coach. And then Vidal's at a small gym in Brazil. So like a lot of small gyms. There's not a lot of wandering out and experimenting with like notable coaches, I guess is what I'm getting at. And I'm kind of wondering why that is. So Lemos gets the win. Even though I don't like the stoppage, I think she was going to win that anyways. I just think that if we're going to give men a chance to recover from that rocking, Rodriguez should also get that opportunity. So Lemos wins, probably in for a title shot, probably gets the winner of Weili Zhang, Carlos Barza, and should. She's I think probably the most compelling challenger in that regard. Because, I mean, looking at the Tapology rankings here, we're not doing Thug Rose versus Carlos Barza again. I guess if Weili Zhang wins, you do her versus Thug Rose. But I think there should be some... I think Thug Rose needs to go and get a win. And then you got like Jean Agnon, not happening. Jessica Andrade, flirting with flyweight. It's not Mackenzie Dern. They'd really like it to be Mackenzie Dern, but it's not Mackenzie Dern. Tisha Torres, Verna Jadner, Robar round off the top 10. No. So yeah, Lemos for a title shot. And for Marina Rodriguez, has she fought Tisha Torres? Has that happened? I don't think it has. And I am pretty... Oh, no, she did. She fought Tisha Torres in 2019. Damn. I was going to say Tisha Torres versus her would be a fantastic fight. Maybe the winner of Angela Hill versus Emily Ducote. Maybe that's the way to go with it. Because I don't think she... I know she hasn't fought Ducote. And I don't think she fought Angela Hill at any point. She did not. Okay, there you go. So yeah, let's go with that. And move on to the co-main event, which was Neil Magny versus D-Rod. So frustrating. So the first round starts out like pretty promising. D-Rod's got the jab going. He's busier at range. He's cleaner. He's getting some good shots into the body. But he doesn't like the flack that's coming back at him from Magny, because Magny is super long. He'll throw a fair amount at you. He'll make you uncomfortable at range. And he goes for takedown. And by that, I mean Rodriguez. Not really. Rodriguez goes for a clinch, gets caught in an arm triangle standing, ends up getting dragged down, does get back up, gets put back down, finishes the round with some big swings, and Magny's taken the first round off of essentially doing Magny things, which is, are you going to clinch with me? And Rodriguez said, yes. Round 2 was a great round for Rodriguez, and it proved that he knew what to do. He really did. He was having great success with the body jab, right to the chest, stopping Magny in his tracks. For the most part, Magny, whenever he had to get something done, would go with a big flurry. There were like 2 or 3 occasions where he would just go for broke, trying to force a clinch. And D-Rod was good at avoiding it. He was getting away. And then towards the end, he clinches. And we end up on the mat. We end up with Magny intertwined with him. Now, Rodriguez still won the round, so we go into the third round tied. And then Magny, to his credit, figures out that I've got to be more aggressive, that if we just sit at range, he is going to win. He's better. This is why I picked D-Rod to win. But he gets hurt. He gets hurt in the process. He gets aggressive, gets hurt, has to pull guard. D-Rod ends up getting back up. Magny gets back to the clinch, gets back control, gets him down, gets the mount. Stunningly enough, Rodriguez gets back up after getting mounted, but then Magny slams him back down, gets the dark choke, gets the tap out. Some people are saying it was a bad idea for Rodriguez to get up when he was in Magny's guard. I think the problem more was that after he got up from Magny's guard, he had no idea how to avoid Magny just re-clinching with him and bringing the fight back to the ground. That was what I thought was the problem. And it's frustrating because this is a fight Rodriguez could have easily won, and he didn't. And it's not like a big fandom of Rodriguez per se. I have this reaction whenever any fighter has a generally, you should have won this fight and you didn't moment. That's really all I got. After the fight, Magny called out Gilbert Burns. That is not happening. Gilbert Burns did the UFC a solid, taking on Khamzat Chimaev and having a big fight. If the UFC gives him Neil Magny, it is a disservice to Gilbert Burns. It's a disservice to the UFC. So who should he fight next, I guess, becomes the question then. Because he's still the gatekeeper. He took offense to Daniel Rodriguez calling him a gatekeeper. And I think afterwards in his post-fight, he's like, who's the gatekeeper now? It's still you. It's still you, Neil. You're still the guy that lost to Shavkat Rakhmonov, who lost to Michael Chiesa. It is still you. Maybe the loser of Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, Kevin Holland. Sounds like a good idea. I think both of those are kind of at least modicumly interesting fights. Other than that, maybe a Sean Brady, but Brady just lost. So that, I don't know, that feels like a flat fight. I don't have anything better for him though. Mostly because at his age, I don't have a particularly large expectation that he's going to get better. And like I said, he really is kind of just a guy that goes out there and is a fight IQ test. It didn't work out. Rodriguez versus Alex Morono. I would actually love that fight. I think that's a fundamental banger right there. And Morono's not booked for anything, so let it happen. Then we got to talk about fight fixing, because Derek Minner went out there against Shilan Nurumbeke. He throws a kick, clearly hurts himself, throws the kick again. Don't know why. Ends up the ground, Nurenbeke mauls him until the referee stops the fight. Now, this was the only other strike stoppage other than the main event on this card. And this is kind of my example here. Like, Minner got 20 seconds to try to figure out how to defend himself while getting hit and having clearly one leg. And we get a standing TKO in the main event with no follow-up, really. Pardon me. Viana also got a finish. And Vidal. But they I have no problems with. Like, they were against opponents that were clearly done. So what is the fight fixing here? I guess becomes the immediate question about this fight. And the answer is okay. So before this fight, there was a massive move on the betting line about 200. Like, it went from a plus 100 and something to plus 300 and something on Derek Minner, suggesting that maybe there was a pre-existing injury. And I'm not accusing Minner of anything. I'm specifically probably accusing his coach of something, frankly. That is that we know James Krause places bets. We know that James Krause's one of his side hustles is literally this super gray area, probably shouldn't be allowed idea that he can place bets and run people's accounts and bet on his own fighters. I think you see where I'm going with this. And yeah, it's fishy. We don't know anything. Like, it could be that he just hurt himself on the kick, and this was entirely not and everyone is just being conspiracy theorist, I guess. But it is not a good look. And it's clear that the UFC knows that this is not a good look, because they did the whole fighters are not allowed to bet anymore thing. And I think that's the problem and this comes up, this will come up in the Polyana Viana fight, as well as, I don't remember who it is, but somebody was calling out Slimmy bets again in the crowd. And this whole recent infatuation with shouting out betting advisors, handicappers, and so on in post fights and sponsorship deals with bet lines and obvious fighter involvement in betting is just not very good for the UFC. And I think the UFC knows it, but they're trying to figure out how to do it without seeming like they're going woke because they love to be the land of freedom and free speech and do whatever you want, which is kind of weird because their contracts more or less imprison the fighters from doing a lot of things. But I guess they're tiptoeing around it. Nurenbeke, I'm not really treating this as a win. Your opponent came in injured and injured himself throwing 2 kicks and was significantly dumb. It was a weird fight to begin with because Nurenbeke had won 2 in a row. Minner was on a 2-fight losing skid. Minner, by the way, is probably going to get cut. He's lost 3 in a row, and this is not a good look. Nurenbeke versus Canwella Kirk, Daniel Pineda. I had not thought about it, but that a fight with Daniel Pineda and Shailen Nurenbeke, that's actually really fun. I'm going to put that down. That's my hope. That's what I would do. Tadger Ulanbekov rolled over Nate Maness, basically. He caught a kick. Got a takedown. Sure, Maness got back up, but he got locked up in a guillotine. Boom, boom, boom. Tadger kind of ruined it by begging for $50K. And this is the thing. It's not even that I think the bonus system is unfair or that this is even a fighter pay moment. It's that I don't think anyone has actually gotten a bonus off of asking for it. So just stop. I don't know. It's cheesy. It's corny. Maness needs to go back up to bantamweight, if not even maybe even featherweight, because dude is 5'10", look like a corpse at the weigh-ins, and nothing about his game is going to age well as he goes down. Before this fight, they had him talking about oh, I'm going to be at 5'10", I'm going to be tall, I'm going to be huge. My guy, you have no range game. Your game is walking in on people, pressuring them, and brawling. Your reach doesn't matter. Your height doesn't really matter. And it's not like you're even a super great top game player who's going to utilize the weight to your advantage. Like, stop murdering yourself, because he got worked in this one. Like this is how obscene his flyweight move is. In my preview podcast, I never once mentioned that this was a flyweight fight because I never once thought it was. I didn't think it was because I was watching Ulanbekov versus Tim Elliott a lot to prep for this, and of course, that was at flyweight. But at the same time, like, Tim Elliott has fought at bantamweight a couple times, so I was just kind of like thinking that Ulanbekov was a bantamweight, Manus was a bantamweight, and that's what we got here. And no, Manus goes down to flyweight. Oh Lord, and Ulanbekov is a flyweight. This is a bad idea. It's just a terrible, terrible idea. Next opponents for these two guys. With Ulanbekov, he's kind of like close to like contention because there's not much of a division. Honestly, that's what kind of goes with it. Maybe like a fight with the winner of Jeff Molina, Jimmy Flick. Maybe even a rematch with Tim Elliott, who was super dirty in their fight, or someone like David Dvorak. So there's a lot of options on the table for him. And then, assuming Manus goes to bantamweight, which he should. I could see him getting someone like a Casey Kenny or Julian Paiva or the loser of Montel Jackson versus Julio Arce, John Castaneda, Timur Valiev. He was saying he wanted like more Dagestani and Russian fighters. Timur Valiev is a good idea, and he's coming off a loss to Jack Shore. So yeah, there's as with like any bantamweight, there's tons of options. So Ulanbekov got the win there. By the way, I went 9-2. I lost the last two fights, so we from this point onward we're covering nothing but wins. Mark Madsen versus Grant Dawson. Madsen had a good start. He clipped Dawson early. Looked like he had him hurt, and then Dawson deployed what clearly was his game plan, which is Mark Madsen is a Greco-Roman guy. I'm not going to try to defeat his hips. I'm going to go with freaking low singles all day. And he did. And he was getting him down. He was getting him down, landing some good ground and pound. Madsen could not get off his back to save his life. And then by the third round, kind of came out a little bit out of nowhere. Like his legs started buckling every time Dawson hit him with a low kick, which was weird because I thought the low kick would be Madsen's weapon. But anyways, yeah, he just goes down. Ends up buckling, falling on the mat, getting an arm on the neck, and then getting rear naked choked from behind by Dawson. Fantastic performance by Dawson. Like, Dawson was my guy of the night because this was great fight IQ. This was solving an actually very difficult question for him and doing it very well. That was fantastic. Although again, referee allowing someone to fight on with one leg, and that's kind of lovely. Which referee was this? Was this it was Herb Dean. Good old Herb. Not surprised. The only L I can give Dawson is that after the fight, he called out Tony Ferguson. And one, you're not getting that fight. Ferguson has far too big of a rep. Two, no one wants to see that fight. No one wants to see you beat up Tony Ferguson. So let's get that out of your head right now. As for who he could fight, someone suggested Gregor Gillespie on Twitter. I don't know what the deal with Gregor Gillespie and his UFC contract is, but that would be dope. You could also go with Drew Dober, although my brain is for some reason tingling that they might have fought. If they did, it was before 2019, so I think you're probably fine. Jalen Turner, the loser of Damir Ismagulov versus Arman Tsarukyan. That has a lot of potential. The winner of RDA versus Brian Barberena. I would love to see Grant Dawson fight Brian Barberena. There you go. That's a fantastic fight. Those are a couple of my options that I would look into. Miranda Maverick destroyed Shanna Young. Okay, I'm going to be as complimentary to Shannon Young as I can be, because I think fundamentally Shannon Young's problem in this fight was just Miranda Maverick is a beast and is physically ridiculous, and Shannon Young is not. Young had some good counters. She clearly had done her homework and saw how Maverick enters striking exchanges and was ready for it. They'd fought before. She did her homework, I think. She did miss weight, cut her hair. Well, she missed weight the first time, cut her hair to make weight. Actually didn't cut much of the hair. So I think they made way too big of a deal of that. And it looked as good as possible, but like she was getting taken down pretty easily. She did get up once when Maverick kind of rushed things. She didn't have a full hooks in the second round, and she went for like a rear naked choke type of scenario. Got shucked off, but ended up just getting a headlock anyways and getting it back to the ground. So it wasn't really a problem. And the third round in particular was a 10-8, I thought, where Maverick just worked her down. So like decent counter performance from Young, showed some fight IQ, but also showed again that she's having difficulty making the weight. And at the end of the day was just destroyed. So I don't know really what to do with her. It feels like she almost needs to go up to bantamweight. And for Miranda Maverick, there's that rematch with Macy Barber sitting right there. Barber and her fought back in 2021. And Barber got the win. A win no one thinks she really should have got. But she's been pretty good since then, beating Montana De La Rosa and Jessica Ai. Maverick's been pretty good since then, although losing to Aaron Blanchfield, but beating Sabina Mazo, beating Shannon Young. You could repair them. You could do something with Casey O'Neill. You could do something with Andrea KGB Lee. There's a lot of options on the table. She, I think, asked for Meatball McCann. And I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think the UFC would or should, frankly, because again, I realize this is a business of hype and money making, make that fight. Because it feels like Maverick does not have nearly the credentials to be seen as a top fighter. Like, we're talking about a lady who clearly has talent, clearly has ability, but her biggest win is Jillian Robertson. So I don't think that you make that fight because she hasn't really earned that high profile. And I also think that she would win it perhaps in a boring fashion, because I think that if she did what she did to Shannon Young, to Molly McCann, we probably wouldn't really enjoy the fight. So McCann's fighting Aaron Blanchfield. I guess the argument could be made that and this is the thing, if she beats Blanchfield, she's above Miranda Maverick significantly because Blanchfield beat Maverick. And if she loses to Blanchfield, it's probably a similar performance to what Maverick had right here. So no, that's not a fight I would do. Mario Bautista versus Benito Lopez. This was not competitive. There was like a little bit of a feeling out process early, but like Batista really took control here. Started landing good shots to the body. Anytime he went with like a double jab, the right hand was just obvious, or the power hand. I'm trying to remember he's a southpaw or an orthodox fighter, but the power hand was coming through, landing really, really easily. Gets a takedown, ends up threatening with an armbar, and then ends up getting a triangle armbar combo with seconds to go. Gets the tap out, nicely done, and Lopez. I think anyone knew that Lopez wasn't that good coming into this fight. If we're being completely honest, like the reason I remember him and the reason I get excited for him is his fight with Alberto Morales. And Morales is not a good fighter, but they went to a competitive decision. And it's that Lopez fights with reckless abandon and destruction on his mind. This was a mismatch from the start. Bautista is much better fighter, and he's beaten better fighters than Benito Lopez, frankly. I don't know why he was getting this fight. Winner of Julio Arce, Montel Jackson, I think would be spectacular. But this felt like going back to like his Jay Perrin fight. And no, I I didn't enjoy it. For Lopez, to be honest, I would take some time off. And like, obviously that was part of the problem. Like he had that 3-year gap before this fight. So he's not going to take time off. But it feels like he just needs to actually learn some stuff. Like he's incredibly raw. And I would love to see him take some time and develop a game that actually will work. If you're insistent on giving him a fight, I think you give him just people who are going to be fun action fighters for him to fight. Someone like Danan Bakariel, someone like Ronnie Lawrence, who I think is booked for something coming up, but like that's a type of fighter that you could go with. You could go with maybe like John Castaneda, if John Castaneda slipped that low. But yeah, there's a lot of interesting stuff you could do with him. But like, I honestly, his best would be if he's in a financial position to do so, just chill out and get better. Jinyu Fry versus Polyana Viana. Yeah, Viana just like kind of like destroyed her. Her first TKO victory since 2015 against Amanda Hebus. How does Amanda Hebus keep appearing as people's like random big performance wins? I don't know. Fry probably needs to retire. My problem with Jinyu Fry has always been like the physical talent is there, the technical talent is largely there. It's just she doesn't seem to enjoy fighting. Like she fights like she's gun shy right off the bat, and I know like part of that could be she's kind of small for the division, but she's also jacked as shit. Quick note here. Viana was the one who talked about like needing to reopen up her OnlyFans account. Again, like with the betting, Dana White, pay the fighters. My God. Next opponents for Fry, like I said, probably getting cut. She's been a disappointment, is the only word I can say with it, really. And for Polyana Viana, maybe you go with like Ariane Carnelosi or Cheyenne Velismus. Both of those, I think, would be good fights and a step up. Maybe like a Corey McKenna. Maybe a Vanessa Demopoulos, although she's fighting Maria Oliveira. And also has actually pieced together like a 2-fight win streak. So probably not her. Maybe the winner of Jasmine Hardagui versus Estela Nunes. Lots of options there. And then Johnny Munoz Jr. versus Ludovic Sholinian. Sholinian is bad. That's what I took away from this fight. I gave Munoz the first and the second round. Every time Munoz was like going to like a third or fourth punch on his strikes, they were landing. Like Sholinian has a decent single strike defense, but after that he just face tank stuff, and does not throw nearly enough back. Does not set up counters, really at all. He's supposedly a Ukrainian national wrestler. His wrestling doesn't even really look all that good. He went for a takedown in the second round, ended up getting his own back taken. It was not good. It was not good. The highlight of his first 2 rounds was like throwing like these twisting elbows while trying to get a takedown on Munoz's hips, and those are doing no damage whatsoever. Third round was better. He just kind of went like, I have to do something, and just kind of like went for broke and put Munoz on the back foot, and that seemed to worry Munoz. Like he didn't seem to know how to really respond to it, and even then, it wasn't the cleanest round for Sholinian. So he's bad. Probably shouldn't be here. I still don't know what to think about Munoz because just hasn't fought competition that really tells us much. What has his UFC run been here? I know he had the loss to Tony Gravely. He beat Jamie Simmons, lost to Nate Maness. Jamie Simmons is not UFC caliber. I'm not sold that Nate Maness is. Gravely is just a power guy, like power striker, power wrestler with like really no craft to kind of build onto it. So there hasn't been a damning performance, but there hasn't been a performance to get me interested. There you go. Munoz also revealed himself as a Trumper in the post fight. I'm never shocked by this. People were like, I can't believe this. I'm like, you can't believe this. This is MMA, people. We got a lot of people who are into like conspiracy theories and totalitarian politics and stuff. We should never be surprised. Who would I put Munoz up against? I want someone who will test him. I really want someone who will test him. Who would that be? Winner Sergey Morozov versus Journey Newsom? How's that sound to everybody? I think that could be good. Kind of makes me regret that they got rid of like Randy Costa and stuff because bantamweight just has such a bottom that can still be very, very fun. Jose Johnson versus Vince Morales winner. That would be another option, I guess. Or Mana Martinez. Anyways, although not Mana. I want Mana versus Christian Rodriguez. I, for some reason, just find that fight fascinating. And for Shalinian, he's only 0-2, I think. But he's not good enough. His primary skill set seems bad, and his understanding of striking appears to not really have any flow or combinations to it. Makes me wonder really how he got to like 8-1-1 before getting to the UFC in a division like this. He's just not very good. Jake Hadley versus Carlos Candelario. Hadley looked good. On the feet, he initially got put on the back foot by Candelario, who was like cutting the cage pretty well and doing like a good job. Surprisingly good job. But like Hadley was landing some good counters. He can slip punches. He was landing some good low kicks. There was a little bit of that route, you go, I go to this fight, which Hadley does need to develop beyond. So like what I'm saying, I guess, is Hadley looked good, but has some definite things that need to get better. And then Candelario gets a takedown and then gets caught in a triangle. Nasty elbows, super aggressive, prolonged tap out, but like smart application of it. Go Jake Hadley. That was a good performance. Just kind of learn to take things a little bit more. Not giving the opponent some of the time that he was giving Candelario is probably a good idea. Candelario also missed weight for this fight. 5 people missed weight for this fight or for this fight card. It was insane. Hadley's in kind of the same thing with like Tadger Ulanbekov, where I don't think that they're ready to contend. But this is flyweight, my friends, and there's not much to do. Maybe you do like a Bruno Silva fight or a Cody Durden fight or an Ode Osborne fight or Tyson Nam. Although I think I had a GC fight for Tyson Nam lined up before, which I'll probably stick with. Maybe like Victor Altamirano. That's another option, I guess. And yeah. First fight of the night, Romana Pascual versus Tamaris Vidal, the debuting fighter. Pascual was another one that missed weight. Early on, it looked like Pascual had like a good grasp on the range. She was landing some good calf kicks. Kind of just like keeping Vidal from employing her own game. More than like getting her own game going. Vidal looked for a takedown, didn't get it. We had some clinch, like some very, very 50-50 clinches going on. Vidal started landing her own calf kicks, very nice. And then she goes for a jumping, I don't know if it's supposed to be a jumping knee to the body that turned into a jumping switch knee, or if it was supposed to be a jumping switch knee, but she hits a jumping switch knee to the liver, drops Pascual. Pascual gets up. There's a little flurry. Referee steps in. Boom, boom, done. Thank you. I feel bad for Romana Pascual. I said in my predictions, like from the interview she's done, she does seem like a lovely individual, like someone that I really want to have success in life and in fighting. But I don't think that she ever really had the physicality. I don't think Vidal has the technique or the variance or anything really to compete, but she does seem to be very, very explosive. She's opportunistic. So, and pathologically aggressive, it seems. Like when she smells blood in the water, she goes for it. These are all things you can build off of. But this is another case like where, like, is she going to go to a gym that can actually develop her into a fighter, or is she going to be on the Marina Rodriguez path where it's just like, I am really a step above physically over people, and that's going to give me wins a lot of the time, but you're never really going to be impressed with my entire well-rounded game. Pascal probably gets cut, missed weight, lost her third straight fight. And for Vidal, what do I do? What do I do with Vidal? If I am the UFC matchmaker, what do I do with Tamarsh Vidal? Oh, that is a conundrum question. This is another super thin division. Super thin. Like, I'm looking at the Tapology rankings, and she's ranked above Aspen Ladd already, and one spot below, like, Chelsea Chandler, who feels way more ready than she does. Maybe Lucy Pudilova. Maybe you go with Lucy Pudilova. That feels too low for Pudilova, though. But anyways, that's what I'm going to go with. What do we got next coming up on the fight cards here? We got the pay-per-view, right? We got the pay-per-view UFC 281. Yeah, the Adesanya versus Pereira, Carlos Barza versus Weili Zhang fight card, Dustin Poirier versus Michael Chandler. All dope. Do feel a little bit bad, like, for Frankie Edgar versus Chris Gutierrez, because I think this is Frankie Edgar's retirement fight. And it feels like it should be a bigger deal than Chris Gutierrez. Dan Hooker versus Claudio Puelles, which is on the main card for some reason. Like, I would have probably put Blanchfield and Molly McCann on the main card because that has legitimate contender implications at flyweight. Over what is just kind of like a fading veteran versus a guy we're trying to give a leg up on. Hanato Moicano, Brad Riddell. Oh, that's a good fight. Dominic Reyes, Ryan Spahn. That could be good. Wellington Turman versus Andre Petrosky. I'm looking forward to that. That's going to be good. Otman Zaitar versus Matt Frivola. I can't say that I'm looking forward to it because Zaitar shouldn't be in the UFC. I'm not going to provide details on that now, but maybe I'll bring it out in the preview. He should be in jail. And but him versus Frivola, that has banger written all over it. So does Mike Trezano versus Sumo Choi. Julio Arce versus Montel Jackson. Looking forward to that a lot. Why is Carlos Olberg versus Nikolai Negumereanu the lead-off fight? I wonder if that's a fight that got moved or something, or one that is, or if this is a case where, like, the reported fight order is not really what's going to happen. But no, this is a stacked card. It's also a rarity because I don't think there's a single debuting fighter on the card. Not even the undercard. Nothing. Wow. Wow. All right. Anyways, check out the link tree, which is either to the right, left, above, or below. There is somewhere there that you can see the link tree that has my Twitter, it has my Twitch, it has my YouTube, it has the other places you can find this podcast, which is available on YouTube, Acast, Spotify, Anchor, and also the Discord where we do simulated fight action, we do prediction battles, we do slam ball, which is this like weird hybrid of basketball with hockey, and trampolines. It's fantastic. Check it out. And we also do pro wrestling there. And you can talk about whatever you want. Right now, there was actually a pretty interesting conversation about Ronda Rousey on the Discord. And like I said, there's my Twitter. You can follow me there, at NeoDread. I tweet during the fights, break down, score the fights as they go on live. Not necessarily an expert or anything on it, but hey, it's there. It's some people do enjoy it. And we also do have a watch along on my TeamSpeak server. That you have to ask me for. because we don't just let anybody in on that. But that's the fight card. It over delivered. It was good in some ways. There were some lowlights, but hey, this is MMA. Also, there's a hell of an interesting conversation on my Twitter right now about like whether MMA owes its existence to pro wrestling. And I'll be blunt here. The answer is yes. If you're not familiar with the links between Japanese pro wrestling with Pancrase and Pride, you've not read up, I guess. Like, that's the only thing. And like the pro wrestling model that influences the early UFC, and in fact, the creation of MMA via the fact that pro wrestling was kind of that first style versus style things. You had Japanese judoka and jiu-jitsu players traveling around, meeting up with like folk style wrestlers, cat style wrestlers, freestyle wrestlers, Greco-Roman wrestlers, going to Japan or going to Brazil, very much inspiring the Gracies to create Brazilian jiu-jitsu. Like it's all over it. It's all over it. Not to mention the fight between Ken Shamrock and Tito Ortiz, massive deal because of the pro wrestling presence of Ken Shamrock. And there's a thrilling history there. And even why the promotions have their own titles as opposed to an independent sanctioning body like boxing or kickboxing, mostly, has to have, is also dates back to pro wrestling and the case back in the 1950s, where basically this was when they admitted to the government that it was a predetermined thing, and that's why they did not become confined by the same rules that boxing was hit by. So like it's really interesting, and of course the fighters and wrestlers are both kind of considered independent contractors while being more employees. There's so many links. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this podcast. And I'll be back on Thursday with a preview for UFC 281.